You'll love this, brother. You can actually fulfill your Greek requirement by taking a Jan term class of 13 days, which barely qualifies you to actually use Bible software to do word studies, to be perfectly honest with you. The idea that you can actually learn to read Koine Greek in 13 days is a joke, unless, of course, you happen to also be able to play Bach at the age of 4. Maybe someone like that might be able to pull it off. But for us normal human beings, that ain't happening. And so it's not surprising that there would be many who would just not even be aware of the information. But there are others who certainly are. And yet I think in the vast majority of instances, in 99 out of 100 instances, 99.9 out of 990 out of 1,000, let's put it that way, instances this coming Easter or this last Easter, whenever, this text might be preached as one of the sayings of Jesus without ever being mentioned, that there is a textual variant here. Now, there are textual variants all across the spectrum of the New Testament. The vast majority of them are irrelevant. The vast majority of them are limited to 1 or 2 manuscripts and do not have any real chance of representing the original text. And so it's not that it's unusual that people don't mention these things. In fact, most ministers won't mention these things unless they can tell that the people in their church have a wide enough variety of translations that they need to mention it, because some translations may have a phrase or lack a phrase or put a phrase in brackets or things like that. That's probably about the only thing that forces most people to address these things. Yes, sir?
When you were debating foreign hermit, was this one of the major textual variants that you used
No, I do not believe that it was. I believe he mentioned the drops of blood one, but I don't recall if this was the one of them that he used. One of the main reasons for that will become apparent here in a moment when we talk about it. The reason, though, that I think there's a couple reasons why this text needs to be addressed, and that's because a tremendous amount of popular theology has been based upon this particular text. I have seen this text cited without any reference to its textual basis in theological debate from a number of different perspectives. And that right there means that there needs to be some understanding of whether this is an original portion of Luke's gospel or not. Now, I don't imagine, I would imagine if you have a New King James, is there a note in the New King James in the textual, at the bottom of the page or in the margin or anything like that in regards to this text? I would sort of doubt that there is. Anyone? No. Does anyone have a translation where there is a note? NASB, what does it say?
The early manuscripts do not contain the Jesus saying.
Are there brackets around the words in the actual text itself?
No.
No, it's just a note. Okay. ESV, anything there? Any ESV? Okay, so there's a textual note in the ESV. Any NIVs? There's a note in the NIV as well. Okay, all right. And the New King James, what was that? It does have one.
New King James has a note. It says, NU text brackets the first sentence of the later edition.
Yeah, okay, that's true. It's amazing that the New King James actually has a little more textual data than most of the others. Remember that NU means Nestle Aland United Bible Societies, which is the standard Greek text that is utilized in New Testament translation today. And so they do, since they're translating from the Textus Receptus, they note those differences, which is very, very useful. I think also makes them very much hated by King James onlyists as well. Just I mentioned that in passing. All right, now the second reason that this needs to be addressed is the fact that this is a major variant. And when I say major variant, that means that there is a very strong case that can be made against the originality of this phrase. Now, what constitutes a strong case? Well, you may recall from however many months ago it was that we did the study, we went through some of these. We looked at textual variants. We looked at 1 Timothy 3:16 and John 1:18 and 1 John 3:1. And remember, we looked at a number of these variants. But I'm trying to keep from totally derailing our gospel study just to cover this one. But I want to cover it well enough that you have an understanding of where it's coming from. A variant has a lot of strength when it is represented in the earliest witnesses we have to a book, and also when it is represented across the families of the New Testament manuscripts. So remember when we talked about this, we talked about the three major families are the Byzantine, the Western, and the Alexandrian. The Alexandrian is generally considered by the vast majority of scholars to be the earliest. The Western is what lies behind what's the Latin Vulgate and certain other Greek manuscripts. And the Byzantine is the majority of the Greek manuscripts, but they tend to come from a later period of time. And what is important to recognize about this particular variant in Luke 23 is that these words are not only not found in some of the most important early manuscripts. For example, one of the most important and most accurate manuscripts we have of the Gospels, I showed this to you, I showed a picture of it to you, is P75. P75 is a very important manuscript. The scribe was very, very good. This was someone who clearly was trained in the scribal arts, shall we say. But it wasn't. He wasn't trained in making fancy manuscripts. He was probably trained in doing business manuscripts, which actually is a good thing, because if you're copying business stuff, you got to get your numbers right. You've got to be a good copyist on detail. And so it's not a pretty manuscript, but it's an accurate manuscript. And P75 does not have this phrase. Sinaiticus